Good afternoon from the backyard of the Hood Ranch, just on the north side of the world's largest grass Mickey Head. I come to you today, August 29th, 2015, exactly 10 years from the day that I had my accident that changed my life and a lot of people's lives in my world. I just wanted to tell my story. This is kind of my way of putting this to bed for the future. I kind of want to put this behind me, and I just thought that this would be a way to do it. I've kind of played around with the video Periscope and how to do this, and honestly I think this is probably the best way to do it. I'm just going to do a video here. It may be a long one, so I just want to give you a heads up on that. I'm going to try to tell the story the best way I know how. I do tend to expound a little bit, so I apologize for that ahead of time. I will say I think you'll be rewarded if you take some time and listen to the story. There are some miracles that happened during my story. I'm alive to this day thanks to some miracles that happened during this story. So just if you get the time, take the time to listen to my story. I think this probably will be the last time I share it publicly. I will definitely take this day in the future myself to reflect upon my life and what's happened since my accident 10 years ago. But I probably won't be sharing it on Facebook and that type of nature in the future, just because I really want it to be kind of more of a behind me type situation. I think 10 years is long enough to try to decide whether or not my injuries are going to be what they are and that they're going to stick with me. I think that they are. I am what I am, and I've taken the last couple years to really lose quite a bit of weight. I've lost 70 pounds over the last year and a half or so, and I've got to where I've started running and riding bike and just doing things like that to make my life better and try to get myself in a better physical shape, or the best I can since my accident. So I've kind of had to lay off the running quite a bit lately just because of my injuries. Have quite a few screws in one of my knees. It's actually in my femur behind my knee, so that's kind of caused me to have to lay off the running a little bit more than I want to. So I've kind of taken up bike riding, but just trying to burn the calories and keep the weight off. So anyway, let's get to the story. So August 29th, 2005, I woke up my normal time in the morning, getting ready for work. 5 o'clock in the morning, I head out the door to head to work, and happened to be the same day that Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana. And I do remember seeing on the news or hearing on the news that the hurricane was due to hit somewhere in Louisiana, and that's honestly all I remember of that whole situation. I was in a coma for the rest of that time, and that'll come up later in the story. I headed out the door. As soon as I grabbed my helmet, put it on, I go out the door, and there's fog so thick that our house is just a few hundred feet from our road. I could not see our road from our house. The backstory on that situation was our road, the gas prices were up just a little bit at the time. We had a big diesel dually at the time, and we thought that it'd be a little cheaper if I would use the motorcycle that we had, and I'd been driving it for the summer trying to save a little bit of fuel money to work. I work about 30 miles away from where I live. We live, like I said, out in the country, and I drove a back road to most of the way to work, and then I'd hit a state road about, 20 miles or so away from our house. Long story short there is I went to get on the motorcycle, and I just really got to thinking about it, and I thought it wasn't safe, so I turned around, went back in the house, took my helmet off, took my leather jacket off, and in August it's a little bit chilly in the morning, so I wore a pair of fairly thick coveralls. Got ready to take those off, and I really got to thinking, I'm not going to save myself any gas money if I keep doing this. So what I decided to do was I decided to go ahead and ride the motorcycle. So I grabbed my jacket again, grabbed my helmet, got on the motorcycle, and headed out. Just a little ways down the road, probably a mile or so, it was so foggy I couldn't even see the front tire of my motorcycle. Pretty quickly I realized it was just the fog getting on the visor of my helmet. However, you really could not see 100 or 200 feet in front of you driving the motorcycle. I did learn to start wiping off my visor so I could see a little bit. About 2 miles down the road, 3 miles down the road, I'd come up upon a town that's not too far away from us called Orestes. The lights there made it a little easier to get through that town. And then I got to where we were past Orestes. It really gets into the country again, and pretty much just surrounded by cornfields. There's another video that I'll have it link in the bottom of this, but it shows the actual intersection where the accident happened. And even now, this year, 2015, 10 years later, there's cornfields on both sides and a bean field behind it. The year that I had the accident, it was actually a cornfield. But that kind of shows the makeup of that intersection. So anyway, I was probably going too fast for the conditions that was there. I don't know how fast I was going. All I can do is guesstimate. I would say I was probably going around the speed limit, 45, 50 mile an hour. Way too fast for those conditions, I'm sure. As you know, if you've drove in the fog, you realize that your landmarks are gone. You can't see where you're at. It's really easy to lose where you're at. There's a house about a quarter mile from where the road tees off and kind of jogs over. And that's normally where I would start slowing down and get ready to turn and go to that jog. I did not see that house at all when I was driving. It usually has a light on. In fact, I think every day I go by there's a light on. I didn't see the light, didn't see the house. I didn't even see the driveway. So between the fog and the fog condensate on my visor of my helmet, I didn't see any of that at all. The first thing I seen come up was the double arrow sign. My headlights did reflect off of it, and the stop sign. By that time, it was really too late to do much of anything. The next few things I'm going to talk about here happen in an absolute millisecond. If you can imagine, I'm probably doing 45, 50 mile an hour coming up on this stuff, and I had no time to think other than, what goes through your head real quickly. If you know much about country intersections, you have a buildup of gravel at just about any intersection, especially a T-type intersection. So there was a lot of that there. I knew that in my head. I knew that there was a lot of things in that intersection, and if you look at the video the other video I share, you'll see all the things in that intersection. There's several telephone poles, guide wires that come down from the telephone poles, stop signs, the double arrow sign that has 2 poles coming off of it, a telephone box that the telephones out here in the country, their wires lead into that box. There's just a lot of things in that intersection. Not obviously in the intersection of the road, but off the side. So in your head, when you're processing all this, and I've been driving this drive about a year to go to work, that was all the things going through my head of what was in that intersection that I needed to consider. The other thing you're thinking about is you just don't want to go flying through an intersection, because I can't remember in my mind, was there a metal guardrail across the back of that intersection? And at any point in time, a car could come across there. So the last thing you want as a motorcycle rider is a car to hit you on the side, or what they call T-bone you. That's pretty much going to be an instant death situation in that kind of a situation. People obviously live through that, but that's probably one of the worst case scenarios you could think of. So all this is going through my head. So the best thing I can think of is try to get stopped as quickly as I can. As I come up to the intersection, try to look for cars and try to look for a bailout direction to go. I went to hit my back brake, which on that motorcycle was the foot pedal. As I went to hit that, it was gone. It was not there. I had that happen several years earlier. The foot pedal had fallen off when I was driving in, and I did hear it. Turned around, stopped, took back. Went back and got it and took it in and got it fixed. The motorcycle dealership actually fixed it, and apparently at some point it had fallen off again, and I did not hear it. So I instantly knew that it was gone. My heart sank. I knew that there was going to be a problem right then and there. At that point, as a motorcycle rider, anyone watching this knows that you're in trouble. The only stopping you've got available to you at that point is your front brake or your front tire, and that's usually not a real good option. Your front tire will slide out from underneath you real easy, especially in any kind of gravel, and it really wants to put you on your head, and it causes something a lot of people call the death wobble, or there's different names people give you when they use their front brake real hard. But pretty much what I just said happened. I really thought through in my head, and I still felt the best option, as opposed to getting hit by a car from the side, or maybe hitting what I thought might have been a guardrail behind there, was to try to get it stopped as much as I could. I hit those front brakes pretty hard, and honestly, right off the bat, it really started slowing down. I felt the whole front end go down. I hit that gravel, and instantly the wobble started. Look that up on YouTube sometime, the death wobble on a motorcycle. You'll see what exactly I'm talking about. The motorcycle started wobbling back and forth so hard you literally cannot hold on. Next thing I knew, I was flying through the air. My arms were out in front of me, and I probably looked a lot like what I consider Superman. And then, honestly, I felt like I was flying through the air quite a ways. And then the next thing through my mind that I noticed was my left torso, or just underneath my left arm, underneath my left armpit, I felt something hit me. My chest compressed real hard. I felt a massive amount of crunching in my chest, and all of the air got knocked out of me in a huge whoosh. I spun around. I felt my head hit something. I did have a helmet on, like I said. And then the next thing in my mind that happened is I was sliding with my helmet face down in the grass, and I slid into the grass and came short, just stopped just short of what was a cornfield right in front of me, and my head was down into the grass. It took me a few minutes. I don't know time wise, it's really hard to say how much time went by. I did try to lift up my head, and as I lifted up my head, I seen my motorcycle to my left side just go flying by me into the cornfield and slowly lay down. So, and afterwards, just for example, the motorcycle was barely even scratched. I think the mirror was bent back just a little bit, and that was all that happened to the motorcycle. I quickly realized I could not breathe, so I've been an EMT for many years. Most of my adult life, been a firefighter most of my adult life. So I quickly started taking stock of what I needed to do to try to save my life, obviously. Started working on that. The only way I could get any air at all was I realized that if I could I got myself up on my elbows, and when I got myself to my elbows, that's when I could actually get what I would, explain as maybe a mouthful of air. It was very tiny little bit of air, but seemed to be enough to try to keep me alive at the time. I did not feel a lot of pain, and this is where I feel like one of the first miracles happened. I had an extreme amount of heat involved in my body, and I have no idea what that was. The only way I can say it is I feel like the Lord put that upon my body to not feel the pain that I was experiencing at the time. I had a lot of injuries. I did some things you'll hear in the rest of the story here that I don't know that I could have done without that extreme amount of heat I felt in my body that blocked, I think, all the pain. But I had a lot. I literally felt like my body was on fire. So anyway, I laid there, and I do not know the time. Time at this point went by, and who knows? It's very, very hard to tell time when you're in a situation like this. It seemed like time stopped, and I definitely was having a hard time keeping conscious. I don't know that it was because I hit my head as much as lack of oxygen. I was really having a hard time breathing. I also could not move my legs. I could not move my body. It seemed like the only thing I could really move was my head and my arms. Honestly, laying there, I thought that I was paralyzed, and that's kind of the first thing that went through my mind. And so I kind of started taking stock of what I needed to do at that point. As a EMT, I really thought one of the best things I could do is probably try to get myself laid over on my back. into what we call a C-spine to try to get because thinking that I was paralyzed, I thought maybe it'd probably be best to get myself over on my back to get myself in at what we call a C-spine to minimize any further injury to, paralyzed or whatever the situation was. So I tried that, but I just couldn't get my body to cooperate, couldn't get my torso or anything to move. I couldn't get my legs to help with that. And if you've ever tried turning yourself over without anything but your arms and with very, very low oxygen, you really just don't have the energy or ability to be able to do it. So I fought and fought and fought. I also had a motorcycle helmet on at the time. And honestly, I worked on that for who knows how long. At some point, I did get myself flipped over and laid my head back. Instantly realized that was a very, very bad decision. I no longer could breathe at all. I immediately started to pray, asking for help from God. I started trying to rock my body back and forth to try to get it turned over. I used my arms every way possible I could and started to black out. My eyes started going dark. I couldn't see anymore. By the way, it was dark out at 5 o'clock in the morning, so there was no light anywhere. Couldn't see anything other than it was just dark. But when it's dark out, and you can still kind of tell that you can see, but I was going blacking out. I fought for what seemed like a while for me, and at some point I lost consciousness. So I really felt at that point in time that was the end of me. I felt like that was because you don't fight like that and lose all your air to the point you lose consciousness and then somehow get your air back. So I could not breathe at all. I was on my back. And the next thing I knew, I was back on my stomach, on my elbows. So that is a miracle. I don't know anyone that can turn themselves over once they are unconscious and unable to breathe. I've been an EMT, like I said, for a long time, a firefighter for most of my adult life. I have never seen an unconscious person turn themselves over. There was no one anywhere to be found. I laid in that ditch for quite a while longer after this. No one was around. This is literally out in the middle of nowhere. It was not my day to die that day. And it's pretty touching, and it really touches me even now to tell this story 10 years later, how God seen fit to keep me alive that day. I did not do that on my own. I somehow was turned over, and whether it was my guardian angel, God sent someone down to get me turned over or what, but I gained consciousness back on my elbows, taking those short little breaths. So anyway, after that, I started taking my short breaths, trying to get some more oxygen, and I realized I needed to at least try to get the helmet off of my head to try to get some weight off of my neck. I was really having a hard time with that. I had to take quite a few breaths to make that happen. That was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Again, I couldn't move anything pretty much below my chest, pretty much my armpits down. I couldn't seem to be able to move. So after quite a while, I did get the helmet off. That did seem to help a little bit, but the whole time I was just on fire. It was hard to explain how hot I was. I laid there for quite some time. We really don't know exactly how much. Guesstimates are at least an hour or so. With the injuries I had, which was both lungs were collapsed, it is absolute miracle that I lived. Not being able to breathe and all that, I had a broken clavicle, a broken femur, ruptured spleen, you name it. I had quite a bit of stuff going on with me. I'm trying to remember all the things, but I had quite a bit of damage. Just about every rib in my chest cavity was broken. I was really messed up. Finally, and this is a pretty big miracle in itself. I was laying there in the ditch just praying for some help. I could not get to. I did have a cell phone. Could not get to it because it was down in my pants pocket, which was inside these coveralls. could not get to that, and I tried and tried and could not get to it. I heard a voice, and there was one time I seen what I thought, because I could kind of turn around behind my shoulder and look, and I seen some headlights come through that intersection. It looked like a bus. They turned off though, and they were gone, and quite a bit of time went by, but I did hear a voice, and it seemed like a younger kid, probably in his late teens, said, "Hey buddy, are you okay?" And I said no, and obviously I wasn't talking normal. I was talking in very short breaths. And he asked if he could help me, and he actually used my phone to call for help. And long story short, that gentleman did not seem to be able to be found after this whole incident. No one seemed to see him at the scene. It's kind of strange that he would not have had his own phone to call for help. He called my wife's phone from my phone, did not ask for a number or anything, used my phone, asked for where my phone was, dug through my pants and got my phone and called. Again, I unless someone can come forward after seeing all this, because we've tried to find who this was, I really feel that this was maybe another angel or another person God has sent to save my life. I don't think I would have stayed there much longer without some help. So anyway, I was down in the ditch, so I think I probably was pretty hard to find. My motorcycle had went out into a cornfield, so you couldn't see it. It had laid over down in the corn, so I don't think you could have seen it anywhere. So I may have laid there until it got light and the fog lifted, so you could finally see me laying there, and I'm guessing I probably wouldn't have made it much longer. So he shows up and calls 911 or calls for help, and then later no one can seem to find who this was. They show up, they come and get me. A great team was there to come and pick me up. They had to fight through the fog. They wanted Lifeline, which is a flight helicopter. Could not fly because it was too foggy. They had trouble getting to me because it was so foggy, finding me. Once they got there, they took me to a hospital nearby, and then once the fog lifted enough, they actually flew me Lifeline to Indianapolis Trauma Center. I was induced into a coma for 3 weeks and had quite a bit of damage to me. I went through a lot through that 3 weeks. Lost 50 pounds in 3 weeks. I always kind of joke it's like the hardest diet that you could go through. A 3 week 50-pound weight loss, but boy, I went through it. It was I was in a coma, did not know anyone or anything. They had to puncture both sides of, or I don't, it's not called puncturing, but they had to open up both sides of my chest to drain out. I went through a lot. I had pneumonia. They had to put me on different beds that would move me, and then I had all kinds of issues. So anyway, it was definitely not my time to die. We went through a lot, and it went through a lot of recovery, obviously, and didn't know that I'd ever walk again, didn't know that I'd ever be able to do anything again. It is an absolute miracle to this day that I can run, I can work out, I can do a lot of things. There's obviously a lot of things I deal with. I deal with back pain continually. Bending over is a very hard thing for me to do, and that's what Gus does for me. I have a service dog. When it comes to certain things, I still need help. When it gets cold out, I have a very hard time dealing with that. It makes life a lot harder. And when it's cold out, it definitely makes it harder for me to breathe. I only have 50% of my lung capacity left. Both lungs lost about half of their lung capacity. Never did get that back, and that makes it really hard to breathe in the cold. But overall, I'm in pretty good shape. I've really worked out and tried to make that a better lifestyle for myself, and I think the Lord has saved my life and put me on this planet for a reason. And like I said, I want to use what's I've got as a life and quit looking back so much on this day as a sad thing or a thing to be melancholy about. It's a great thing that my life was saved, and I just think maybe I need to share this story to maybe touch someone else and help them get through something that they're going through. So that's my story, and I just thought this day, the 29th of August, 2015, 10 years later, that I would share it. So hopefully it helps somebody out. And if you have any questions or anything, obviously you can say something to me in the comments, or comment about it. Or if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thanks for listening.